And I'm back with Project PlayStation 5, and this time I finished not one game, but two. Let's take a look. Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Thanks for pressing play once again. I'm the man they call Pixel Paul and this is Project PS5. So if you've not seen any of these videos before, I do have a playlist with previous ones which I will link at the end of the video. And yeah, Project PlayStation 5 is essentially me charting my way through my backlog of PS5 games. So yeah, last year it's fair to say I neglected my PlayStation 5 a little bit. I was catching up on various other things, other games, probably some from like the PlayStation 4 era, some of the Xbox One stuff. So my PS5 actually took a bit of a backseat last year. So I've been trying to get through a backlog of games that I've amassed, and I've been adding to it as well as I've been going along. So yeah, what I will do is first up, I will give you an update on where we are with the actual PlayStation 5 collection. There was one outgoing, so I did sell Lego Brawls, which I think I picked up really cheap from Smith's Toys earlier in the year. So that went, I traded that into CEX. And because of, mainly because of games' current 50% off sale of the pre-owned stock, I've added a fair few extra PlayStation 5 games. So I'll show you which ones I've picked up. You may have seen this one already. This is Final Fantasy 16. I picked this one up from Smith's Toy Stores again. This was only £10, so that was a really good pickup. So that one's been added in. I also have picked up, and these were from Game with 50% off, Assassin's Creed Mirage, Gotham Knights, and the PlayStation 5 game that I have been wanting to play for a very long time, Dead Space. And I got that one for a really decent price. It was really worth me hanging on and waiting for... It wasn't a price drop, it was a pre-owned copy in game with 50% off. I think I got that for £11 or £12. So at that price, it was an absolute steal. I am currently playing this one at the moment, and I'll show you what I think about this game in the next video. But early impressions, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, one other game that I did add in also was Evil West. And that's the game that I'm going to talk about first. So Evil West then, yeah, this is a game that I wouldn't say it came out under the radar in 2022, so 2 years ago. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily under the radar. It came out at a decent time in the sort of PlayStation 5's sort of lifespan, if you like, because there wasn't a massive amount around at that time when it came out. Does that sound familiar? So it sold reasonably well, and it reviewed pretty well as well, actually. Not massively, big, great scores or anything like that. I think Metacritic have currently got it as like mostly good or something like that, or 75 out of 100 rating. And that probably does do it justice, actually. It is probably around that kind of game. I have to say though, I thoroughly enjoyed playing this. It was just something a little bit different, a little bit old school as well, which I'll explain in a minute. But first, let's have a quick look through some gameplay of Evil West.
Nah, it's not that bad. I'm almost there. Jesus! Let's give it a try.
What's that sound? Stop whining! Start moving! You smell that? Shit! It's gonna... So nasty.
vultures. All dead. Fuck. Boy, you better make all this worth our time, Chester. That felt good. Gotta cross the river somehow. This would be a bad time for this thing to collapse.
How to explain Evil West? Well, I found it quite sort of similar in sort of setting and characters to games like Dark Watch. If you know that game from like the PlayStation 2, Xbox era. Yeah, it's similar to sort of Dark Watch. Cowboys versus the undead and vampires and that sort of thing. So it has been kind of done before this, and that's kind of the feeling I got when I was playing it. This could very much have been a kind of Xbox 360 era kind of game. It was that sort of pick up and play, no frills and fanfare to it particularly. You'd play through it, you'd enjoy it, and then you'd forget about it. And it's one of those games I think, you know, people might sort of play and, like I said, enjoy it, and then 5, 6, 7 years time, people would be looking back at this generation of consoles and see Evil West and think, oh yeah, I actually quite enjoyed that game. It's one of those games that's enjoyable but then kind of forgettable. It's a weird one, but yeah, it did hark back to like Xbox 360 days. We used to get quite a few games like this back in that generation. So yeah, I really did enjoy playing through this. Tons of gore, tons of blood, and really clever kind of weapons as well in there. It's sort of 50% gunplay, 50% hand-to-hand combat, and some of the weapons, and as you go through the game, are quite sort of spectacular. There's heavy use of like sort of particle effects. The backgrounds and scenery is quite sort of not bland, but it's quite dark at places. And yeah, like the weaponry and special effects that sort of cut in are quite sort of bright and in your face, so that helps lift the sort of graphical view of the game. But overall, sort of the gameplay wise, it's quite linear. The levels as you go through them look like they could be quite expansive, and there are kind of areas where you can go off the beaten track a little bit. They don't tend to go anywhere. There's no sort of side missions or anything like that. If you do find an area that's off the sort of linear path, it's usually just to find like a bag of money or, you know, some sort of additional game content, if you like. So there's not much pull to go from the main sort of beaten track, main sort of path. It's mainly you go into one fight with a plethora of enemies. You'll trudge along and you'll find the next bunch of enemies, and so on and so on, until you get to sort of like the end of the mission and there's a big boss. So it's pretty basic in a way, but enjoyably basic. Like I said, it's kind of a bit of an old school game, and I just found it quite enjoyable. And it's something a bit different to games that are like massively open world with side quests here, side quests there. This was very much jump in, you know what you got to do, off you go and do it, and cause as much chaos as you can as you go through it. So like I said, I keep saying it, I did enjoy it. It may not be for everyone. I think some people will find it very repetitive. And to be fair, you know, they do kind of overuse the same enemies over and over. So as you go through like maybe the first half of the game, and there's about, I think, was there 16 missions, I think. So when you get about halfway through, you've pretty much seen most of the enemies, apart from the end of level bosses. You've seen most of the enemies that you're going to come across. And what they then tend to do is use the same enemies, but in bigger quantities. So without spoiling anything, when you get to like the final mission, you'll come across like one of the bigger bosses 3 times. So it's a little bit, I'd say, lazy, possibly, almost as if they just ran out of ideas or inspiration a little bit toward the end of the game. But other than that, yeah, I think Evil West, at the prices that you can pick this up for at the moment, it is well worth a look. I think it is on PS Plus as well. I think it's on Xbox Game Pass as well. There wasn't a Switch version, obviously. So on those two, you can play this, I think, on those 2 online subscription services. So it is well worth a look if you can play it via them. But if you wanted to find a physical copy of it, it's going pretty cheap in game at the moment. I think you can find it for about $14.99 if you're lucky enough to have pre-owned sections in game still and any stock left. I think, well, I saw this for $12.99 the other day, so with 50% off you're getting it for £6 odd, £6.50, and at that price, if you want a physical copy of it, that's an absolute steal. So will I be keeping Evil West in my collection? Yeah, more than likely. Trading value is not that great at the moment for this, so yeah, I will be keeping it in my collection. Would I play it again? I think I said it earlier. I think this is the sort of game in a few years' time I'll come back to and think I might give this another good playthrough again because I quite enjoyed it. So possibly, yeah, I think I probably possibly will play it again. I think there's something in this though. I think there's a franchise in here. I'd love to see them maybe go a bit further with this and maybe look at an Evil West 2. I think there's something about it that, if they could just iron out some of the things like the lazy, repetitive enemies, and maybe make it a little bit more open world, not massively open world, but just open up the missions a little bit more. They could be onto something with this, and I think there could be some sort of franchise with this. Wherever it'll happen, probably unlikely, but yeah, thoroughly recommended. Evil West, PlayStation. And the second game finished this time around is, it's an absolute classic. There will not be that many people that will have not played one of the versions of this game, or at least watched the TV series recently. And this version of it has just made it that little bit better as well compared to the PlayStation 3 version, the PlayStation 4 remastered version. This has kind of just topped it off and just given it that next gen sheen, and it's still the same fantastic game that it always was. It is, of course, I better tell you which one it is, The Last of Us Pt1. So incredible game, still an incredible game. I know it does split opinion a little bit. Some people aren't that keen on it. Some people think it's really overrated. I personally loved it. I loved it on the PlayStation 3 when it first came out. And yeah, this version was just exactly what I sort of wanted to see. So let's have a quick look at The Last of Us Pt1.
Ellie! Ellie!
Did you hear me?
No. What?
Look, hospital. This is where we get off. Let's go, kiddo. You feel that breeze, huh? I tell you, on a day like this, I just sit on my porch, pick away my six string. Yeah, once we're done with this whole thing, I'm gonna teach you how to play guitar. I reckon you'd really like that. What do you say, huh? God.
I dreamt about flying the other night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Go on, tell me about it.
So, I'm on this big plane full of people, and everyone is screaming and yelling because the plane's going down. So I walk to the cockpit, open the door, there's no pilot. I try to use the controls, but I obviously have no clue how to fly a plane. And right before we crash, I wake up. I've never been on a plane. Isn't that weird?
Well, you know, dreams are weird. Look at that. Another city, another abandoned quarantine zone. There's that hospital the Firefly mentioned. Come on, kiddo.
So I'm not going to review The Last of Us Part 1 because, you know, it's a classic game. It's that is all you can say about it. This version of it is the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 versions ramped up onto the PlayStation 5, and it just looks gorgeous. It does. It's, you know, the same story, which is absolutely fantastic, and it's probably the story and the characters which are the game's main selling points, main sort of bonus, biggest draw, if you like. The script, the dialogue, the acting is absolutely on point. Even more so with the sort of the character models and the facial expressions that they're able to do with the characters on this current generation. So yeah, I mean it's an absolutely fantastic game. I honestly couldn't recommend it anymore, really. Like I said, I think most people will have played a version of The Last of Us Part 1, and I've got to say that this is the best version of the game. Having watched the TV show not that long ago, because it's been a while since I played the original PlayStation 3 version, so I do have the PS4 game, but never played that. But the PS3 version is the game that I played prior, and it's been probably 10 years since I played that. So watching the TV series was what put the whole kind of story back into my head. And then going and playing this a few months later, I really sort of appreciated what they've now done with that TV show. Obviously, they changed bits of it. They had to for the sake of, possibly because of budgets and just to make it more TV friendly. But yeah, overall, it just hammers home just how good that sort of story and the characters are in this game. And yeah, I can't recommend it any more than that, really. It's at the moment, this game is currently, for some reason, still holding its price. In most places, you will still find this at that sort of full retail price, with the occasional price drop. The price drops tend to be to about $34.99. It may have come down a little bit more because of the Days of Play that PlayStation do, so it may have come down a little bit more. Strangely enough, I think the Part 2 remaster has actually reduced in price a lot quicker and to less than what this is. So I think you can get the Part 2 of this for about $29.99 at the moment. So, I mean, that just shows you just how good this game is, I guess, and maybe how different Part 2 was. But we'll talk about that another day, potentially. So yeah, Last of Us Part 1, thoroughly recommended. Yes, it will be staying in my collection, no doubt whatsoever. Will I play it again? Yeah, I think I probably will be doing at some point. I've still got to play the Left Behind as well, because I've never played the Left Behind downloadable content, which is included in here, so I'm going to play through that as well. But yeah, Absolutely loved it. Brilliant game. So those were the 2 updates to Project PlayStation 5. Another 2 games chalked off the backlog. And already now I've completed Call of Duty Vanguard, A Plague Tale, Requiem, and those 2 games. So that's 4 games finished out of the backlog. Still got plenty to go through, but 4 games finished this year. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but that is the same amount of games as I played finished last year. So I'm already ahead of last year. But I am trying to get my way through the backlog. I'm a little bit worried about that one because I don't know how many hours it's going to take to get through that. We'll see. And also I think Assassin's Creed Mirage is also quite a big game. That's part of the problem with this generation, is that all these games, the AAA sort of titles, they're always so big and they always take so long to finish. So it's no wonder it takes a while to get through them. But Dead Space is what I am currently playing. Really enjoying this. But I will talk about that on the next video. I have finished another game as well from the backlog. It's a game that I've sort of been dipping in and out of over the last nearly a year, actually, I think it is. So I will talk about that one on the next video as well. So I hope you enjoyed that little run through of my opinion on those 2 games. 2 more games off the backlog. Thanks for joining me on this again. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, if you can hit that subscription button, that would be appreciated. And I will see you next time.